All right, let's jump right in. So our first question is, does this draft kind of indicate a done deal, or do you think that the justices will change their mind, or will a draft kind of be redrafted?
So it's a great question, right? It's indicated that this is a first draft by Justice Alito that was leaked, and it's dated back in February. Now, normally what would happen is after oral argument, there would be a first sort of take on where the judges are, the justices are in terms of votes on the case, and then it's assigned. And so here it's assigned to Justice Alito, which wouldn't be a necessarily good sign for those who want abortion rights protected, reproductive rights protected. But then the opinion would be drafted, and it would go through several iterations, right? The process of having a majority opinion or any opinion is really a process of persuasion that requires changes to the opinion. And so there's a real question, is this going to be close to what would ultimately be the decision that comes from the court, or would changes be made, and what's the impact of this leak on that process?
You know, the last time we spoke, it was during confirmation hearings for the woman who will be the next Supreme Court justice. And I said at the time, I think I asked you the question, I said, what's the point of these things? Like are these things even, does these even matter? Are these just a waste of time that we all watch these things? Because I would point out that during the confirmation hearings of Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, both said on the record that they believed this was settled law. This was precedent upon precedent. Does precedent matter, number one? And number two, I mean, what's the point of the hearings anymore?
Yeah, great questions. A precedent absolutely matters, right? It's important for stability in the law. It's important for people to be able to rely on what the law is. When you think about, in particular, 50 years, right, that there was an understanding that women's reproductive decisions, including the decision whether to have abortion with some regulation, right, so there was balancing, but that was considered a fundamental right, part of the right of privacy. Those precedents are extraordinarily important to people, to women, but to all kinds of people across America. And, to say, and it's true that at their confirmation hearings, they talked about the importance of precedent, but the one level of the court that can overturn precedent is the Supreme Court. They have to have good reasons. I mean, there is wording in this draft opinion that seems to say, oh, here the factors for precedent are overturned. Not persuasive at all. And it's true. What's the purpose of these hearings when you really don't get a sense of where the justices stand? And it looks like the courts are much more political than many of us would like to believe.
So, Natalie, why have federal lawmakers not voted to codify abortion rights into law?
I think it's a matter of, so you're saying the Democrats now, right? There's discussion going on now about codifying Roe v. Wade into federal law. I think there was a bill in the House. The question is, do they have the votes in the Senate to do it? And this would require getting past the filibuster rule. And I think there are active discussions going on now about whether or not that's something that's feasible, whether or not there would be a willingness to do away with the filibuster to go ahead and pass that kind of a law in the Senate.
Can you talk at all about sort of the intrigue into how all of this is now out in the public sphere now? Because I think for most Americans, right, that like the Supreme Court, it's this body. We don't ever see them talking on TV. We hear their voices maybe sometimes in news reports, but that's about it. It's very, like we kind of have an idea of what goes on, but we don't really know what goes on. And then all of a sudden, plop, this comes out into the public sphere. So how does it work? I mean, it's fascinating to me that this happened. And I know you were pretty shocked that this came out as well.
Yeah, the leak, of a draft opinion has never, to my knowledge, happened in the history of the Supreme Court. And there are norms, there are rules and norms that are designed to support the idea that, the justices are supposed to be ruling on the facts and the law, the application of the Constitution. Now, there are those who think, oh, well, that's like, putting it into an adding machine and you just, calling balls and strikes, for example, and the answers are clear. That's really not the case. The Constitution has a lot of ambiguities, right? And so there is policy that goes into it. There are discussions that go into it, but that's supposed to be a deliberative process. That's a serious process that takes into account precedent, et cetera. And that's done in a way that is out of the public eye to shield it from politics. One of the things that's so shocking about this is that it's kind of putting the whole thing out there into the political sphere in a really disturbing and extreme way, and it's with an opinion that is written in such an extreme way. It's a radical view. It overturns precedent, so it really breaks norms with the Supreme Court and undermines its legitimacy in ways that I don't recall seeing in all of my years that I've been studying the Supreme Court.
Well, Professor Natalie Gomez-Velez, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have you back in the coming days.
Thanks for having me.